Welcome to our YouTube video series on class action lawsuits. My name is Christopher Neufeld, the Neufeld Legal. And in this particular video, we're going to discuss how class action lawsuits are oftentimes the only way to achieve accountability and to facilitate larger, broader legal compliance of large corporations. And the reason for this stems from the limitations of individual legal actions and how individual legal actions are resolved as opposed to class action lawsuits. Because in individual legal actions, all too often, settlements are agreed to that are bound by terms of confidentiality and non-disclosure, which means that these lawsuits never see the light of day. And as such, the corporation is able to continue with its supposition that its practices were correct, although for the sake of avoiding legal costs, adverse publicity, or otherwise, they settle the matter out for an undisclosed sum and they resolve the matter. And no one knows exactly what's transpired. And then oftentimes there is no corrective action or legal re-education of the large corporation. Instead, they can continue to hold the belief, and they do so, that their actions were, in their perspective, legally correct, and the singular incident represented an anomaly potentially, or just a hindrance or obstruction that really does not reflect the true state of affairs and the legal position they have with respect to that particular activity. And as such, no appropriate corrective measures need be taken. Yes, sometimes those measures are taken, but if anything, it is to further obfuscate, disguise what is actually transpired within the corporation so as to protect itself legally. On the flip side, what one has with a class action lawsuit is a lot of openness and the requirements of disclosure because they impact all the individuals. The settlements are public. They have to be signed off by judges. And they are subject to scrutiny, not only by the judges, but also by their other class members, especially if there is a perception of inadequacy with respect to the settlement. And as such, it motivates the plaintiff lawyers who are bringing the action to actually be that much more transparent and to pursue these matters and to pursue corrective action on the part of the defendants. All that much more. Because it is not going to be some hidden settlement, the terms of which are not being disclosed. To the contrary, it is a publicly disclosed settlement that has to be signed on by the class members, that has to be signed off by the judge, even though it is agreed to by the plaintiff's lawyers and the defendant's lawyers. There's still those requirements. And once this becomes public, and once the judiciary signs off on it, there has to be corrections implemented so that the law is complied with as properly interpreted. And that is why class action lawsuits are capable of bringing accountability, transparency, and corrective measures within large corporations from a legal standpoint, which might not otherwise exist. And it is the way in which constructive advancement might be realized for the entirety of the company and all the participants, which is exemplified in the legal actions that we are presently undertaking, where the objective is not only to address the concerns which were not adequately addressed in our estimation of the representative plaintiffs in their individual capacity, but to also pursue the matter and achieve correction with respect to the broader scope of individuals who are impacted by the actions of these large corporate defendants. And that is what is possible with a class action lawsuit. Furthermore, it positions the representative plaintiffs to have that much stronger of a sway to affect change. Because otherwise, without the burdensomeness and the costliness associated with a class action lawsuit, large corporate defendants can use their financial might to challenge and to put down individual plaintiffs. Because legal actions have become increasingly costly, increasingly time-consuming, and increasingly burdensome, that oftentimes, if not always, individual plaintiffs are at a significant disadvantage. They cannot allow this matters, they cannot pay out to lawyers for extended periods of time with the hope that they will realize at the end not only what the litigation sought, but also all their lawyer costs, lawyer fees, which can be extraordinary because of the implications of these matters should they not settle. Because if these matters in the individual side actually would go to trial, the impact for the corporate defendants would be significant nevertheless. However, to get to that point, these large corporate defendants can effectively drag out the process and continue to make it next to impossible for the individual plaintiff to continue to pursue and to finance the litigation. And it is an extremely challenging proposition to pursue these matters in the absence of class action legislation and class action litigation. Because then it starts to level the playing field. It enables lawyers to operate on contingency agreements that are justified by the risk and the cost that they put into these proceedings, given that these proceedings have the potential to address significant legal matters that impact a wide breadth of their employees, clients, customers, or otherwise, and thus can be extremely costly given the scope and the impact of the faults that are being pursued as against these corporate defendants. And because of that, it is the leveling of the playing field that class action litigation remains necessary and needs to be supported and needs to be understood and implemented in many commercial litigation matters, employment litigation matters, and anything that has an impact to more than one individual. Because otherwise, the barriers to legal entry are too high. The cost is too high. The time is too high. And the lawyers are challenged to make this a viable pursuit for both the individual plaintiff and for themselves. And as such, the necessity to look at class action litigation needs to be that much more strengthened and to be seen as to how best to be pursued to affect equity and justice for not only the plaintiff that initiates the process, being the represented plaintiff, but all other persons who have been impacted in a similar way by that corporate defendant. Thank you.